Ready? All right. Thank y'all so much for coming here today. I truly, truly appreciate if you made the drive from far, if you made the drive from close, you got in your car and you came out, and that's what matters. I really was stressing a lot today because I was freaking out about the fact that I don't have a really well polished script to talk to y'all about. And in driving here today, I realized that my whole thing is that I'm not a polished politician. So every speech you hear from me is not going to be perfect. It might be a little bit funky and I might go off topic a little bit, but I am so appreciative for the support that y'all are giving to me. A humble public servant in the sense that I'm a public school teacher. I appreciate that y'all want to make the community a better place. And I think that together we truly can do that. I think there's so many things that if we join together and we are strong together, we can make change. We can make everyone in this state comfortable. They can live comfortably. They can have what they need. We can treat them with dignity and respect. And I think that that is something that is so possible. And so I really appreciate y'all coming out and making the decision to work towards a better Texas with me. And like I said, I'm not a polished politician. I haven't figured out how to end a speech yet. But thank you guys so much for coming out again. The coffee is fantastic if you haven't bought any yet. And remember to vote Meagan 2026. I'll see you in the polls for the primaries. Next up, we have Sarah. Hey y'all, my name is Sarah McGee. I am running for the State House in District 132, which we are currently in right now. And then if you go back, that's fine. Go right. If you go west and south, that is, all encompassing in the district. So I want to tell the story of how I am standing here when about 6 months ago, I was sitting over there. The last cycle, I spent basically the entire fall block walking for Colin Allred and phone banking for Kamala and, hanging out on Sunday afternoons, texting people in Michigan, telling them to vote. And then it was the first day of early voting. And I went to the polls, and the current representative, Mike Schofield, was at the polls. And so I told my daughter, I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to go talk to him because they always tell you to talk to your representatives. So I did. So my background, I'm a director of radiology. I was wearing my scrubs, and I thought for sure, I was like, if I just go tell him, like to his face, how the reproductive laws are actually affecting women, like I have real stories to, tell this man. So I told him several stories, and he basically called me a liar to my face. So it was that moment that all of a sudden I realized I can't believe that I just spent several months working on national issues when we have such a problem here at home. And so I filed my paperwork on November 13th. Like I knew immediately that this is my home. I've lived in this district for 41 years. I've been here since I was 3 years old. Grew up in Katy and then moved to Cypress, but the entire time has been 132. So I grew up here, went to high school here, raised my children here, and I can't stand for one more second that we have a representative in Austin that does not actually speak for us. So that is why I'm here, and thank y'all so much for being here, and make sure that you're getting involved in your local elections because, like I said, I did not realize what a problem we had. All of a sudden, I'm awake, and I'm trying to make sure that everybody else is too because I don't know if you heard about what happened in Pasadena. Did y'all hear about that? Pasadena City Council election was in May. It went to a runoff, which just happened a few weeks ago. The runoff ended in a 272 to 272 tie. They chose their next city council member with a coin flip. So when you're going out and talking to people and they're like, oh, what does it matter? I'm just one amongst 150 million votes and, they can't, it doesn't matter anyway, so why even bother? You're not trying to be one of 150 million. You're trying to be 273, 272, and make your voice heard. And the closer the election is to your home, the smaller the turnout is, the larger of an impact that it has on your everyday life. And another thing I want to tell people is that the next election is not November 2026. The next election is this November. We have school boards, we have municipal elections. In the Houston area, they're selecting Sylvester Turner's replacement. now's the time. Like, we're not hanging out waiting until next summer to start knocking doors. We're knocking doors now. We're making sure that people are getting registered to vote now. Get involved early, often, and frequently, and we're going to save our state. And then by extension, our country. So thank you guys. And next up, we have Emily. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Morgul. I am running for U.S. Senate against Cornyn/Paxton, just depending on who wins the primary in March. I actually decided to run for U.S. Senate the day that Roe v. Wade died. And I use that word very purposefully because they killed it. They killed something that is precious to us, something that we took for granted for almost 50 years. I also have stories about women who have been forced to carry children that was forcefully, I'm also not a Polish politician, forced upon them. And I know women who got pregnant by accident, by no fault of their own, through faulty birth control. Yaz actually had a birth control issue back in, I think, 2017, where all of the pills were the sugar pills. And there was no actual birth control in those wheels. And the devastation that people felt because they were trying to do everything right to prevent pregnancy that they may or may not have wanted, or they weren't in the place to do so. Thankfully, they were able to explore all of their options at this time. But I can't help but think about all of the women, all the people actually, who are able to give birth, who are being forced to carry children that they may or may not want. We are also forcing children to carry to term their own babies. Young babies are forced to carry their own children, and they're being forcefully done so by family members, by clergy people, by trusted uncles, friends of the family. And I am just absolutely disgusted by the way that our country, half of our country, supports this forced birth movement. When people ask if I'm pro-life or pro-choice, I say yes. I am pro-life in the fact that I believe that every person who is alive deserves bodily autonomy, and I am pro-choice for the people who want to make the choice that is best for them. I'm also the daughter of an immigrant. My dad came here, in 1988. He had basically no money. He came from a post-Ottoman Empire Turkey. He actually has a 5th grade education because his family was so poor they could not afford to send him to school. I am very offended by people saying that immigrants come to this country and have kids as anchor babies. I am not an anchor baby. My younger brother is not an anchor baby. We were planned, we were expected, and the fact that, again, about 50% of the population believe that people like my dad shouldn't be here because they weren't born here. We shouldn't exist because our parents, our family members shouldn't be here because they have no right to be here. America was built on the backs of immigrants. It was built on everybody that shouldn't be here, on the Black people in our communities. It was built by hard work, by people who, a lot of others who were born here, they think that those jobs are beneath them. So they rely on immigrants to do it. I am absolutely disgusted by the way that our brown immigrants have been treated. My dad is, if you looked at him, he is very brown. You would never think that he is Turkish. I pass for white. So people don't ever think that I'm Turkish. And I hear it all of the time. Oh, immigrants don't belong here. They don't belong in public office. They don't belong in public spaces. They should just be seen and not heard. And they have earned their rights to be here. What I've learned through my dad is that the process, the right way, doesn't look the same for everybody. And there was no right way to come here for a very, very long time. We also built this country on the backs of, we want you to to feel free in this country where you might have escaped oppression, uh, might have escaped political persecution, religious persecution. This country was founded on people who wanted to escape um, being forced to practice a certain religion. And somebody brought up the really amazing fact that we have the right to practice religion, but we're also free from religion. So I want to create a better America. I want to serve the people who live here. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what ethnicity you are. I don't care what religion you are. You are here. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be treated like humans. And the fact that others tend to disagree is what's pushing me farther to do the work that I'm doing. I am a researcher by trade. I do a lot of research on human behavior, and I can see past a lot of the political propaganda. And what I see is entitlement. What I see is apathy for human life. They claim to be pro-life, but they don't care about the lives that live here in America. And they certainly don't care about the babies being born. As soon as that child is popped out, you're on your own. Sucks to suck. So I've made the decision that I am not going to accept any donations from any kind of PACs. I am a completely grassroots candidate. I work for the people, not for political organizations. And my salary, if I'm elected, will be paid by y'all. And my goal is to make sure that every citizen of this country is heard. So thank you so much for coming. I'm super grateful for this time. And I hope everybody gets home safely, and don't forget to vote.
Oh, it's so great here. If you've not got coffee, get some, buy something at Peace. Oh, myself.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to say hi. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Ben. Most of you actually know me from Plum, but I also run building bridges. We'll get to that later because it's not about me today. We do have we do have some sticky notes everywhere. We're going to answer a few questions here in just a moment, but I just want to let you know, if you have any sticky notes, if you don't want to ask a question, you can go ahead and write it down. If not, we'll actually ask to see if anybody has any questions as well. But I'm going to give it right back over.
Super honored that all of y'all are here and chose us to house whatever's going on today. There's a lot going on, a lot of greatness, awesomeness, and all the beautiful faces and the people. The energy is amazing. I'm just super glad that y'all are here. Thank you so much. That's all I got. Liz is out. Thanks, Ben.
All right, everybody, just give us just a moment.
I am.
We're going to go ahead and answer some questions. Do y'all want to go up front or speak? Yeah. Y'all ladies don't mind, go ahead and just up front somewhere. You have to stand or whatever. Here's the mic. All right. Is there support? No. All right. So
I got here late. So the people are right down the stage.
we're not difficult for everybody. All right. Can you share more on your plans to support teachers?
Oh my goodness.
So
I got that.
this is that's pretty much for everybody question.
Yeah, no, so this one, specifically at the state level, obviously our public school system has been dramatically underfunded for years. And it's been they're playing the long game. It's been very well thought out. It's been very insidious. And the entire purpose of it, there's been a basically nationwide attack on our public school system for one purpose and one purpose only. It's because they want to privatize education. Because if there's anything that Republicans do, it's that they find ways to take public tax dollars, add a layer of profit, and call it the free market. When what it really happens, if you look at our healthcare system, is that it creates less access to services, poorer services that are astronomically more expensive. So that's what they're trying to do with our education system. So the very first thing that I would do to support teachers is get rid of the voucher system, call for an immediate independent audit of TEA, because long before they actually passed vouchers, they've been using TEA as a vessel to funnel public dollars to all of their buddies and their test administrators and, you know, special contractors and everything else that they put under the cloak of the TEA. So take every single public dollar and put it back directly into the schools, which is going to immediately support teachers. So I want our teachers to be in the top 10% of salaried in the nation, not the bottom 10% of salaried in the nation, because it's not just a way to support them, but it's a way to recruit the best and brightest talent to our state, which ultimately is going to best benefit our students. So that's my spiel on that. That's more of a spiel.
I was gonna say I can jump as the public school educator. I can jump into that. So the first thing that I would do as governor is push for legislation that ends again the voucher schemes. So 500 million to approximately $1 billion right now is being funneled from our public school systems into the voucher schemes. And what we're talking about when we talk about voucher schemes, as a special needs mom, I see this all the time, and people might not realize, especially caregivers and family members to disabled children, they say, but I need private school because my public school has let me down. Your public school has let you down because we're funneling money away from it actively, like you mentioned, into privatized education. But the problem with privatized education is it is not required to protect your child. So privatized education is a pay to play, but they don't have to let you on the team. So for me, one of the biggest things that I would do is, again, end that voucher scheme, use that money, funnel it towards making sure that all teachers statewide have a base pay of $60,000. In some of our more rural areas, we have teachers that are getting paid $35,000 to $40,000 a year. That is insane. So that would be the first big thing that I did. I would also just constantly push for public schooling to be fully funded, making sure that our teachers are given consistent training that is actually effective, and making sure that they are getting the supports that they need. And I really think that most of honestly, we could really fully fund public schools by taking that voucher money and just directing it straight there. And it's crazy that it's such an easy solution, but we're not doing it. So why are we not doing it? It's because we love funneling public dollars into private entities. So that's where I would start as governor. And as a public school teacher, we're trying to get paid more because we want to be more effective. So that's where we would go.
So I actually worked in the private school sector for a couple of years. I was a substitute teacher, and I had no idea that there was zero government oversight. They can hire whoever they want to teach your children. In fact, I don't have a degree, and they wanted to hire me for a history teacher profession, or a history teacher position, a position that I have no business being in. And I am fine with admitting that. So I've actually been working with special needs teachers because those are some of the most vulnerable students that we have. And what I've also learned about the public education system is that there are zero protections for people children with special needs. They don't have to admit special needs children, and they can also get rid of special needs children, especially those with behavioral issues, kids that bring down their test scores. So one of the big initiatives that I would love to do is just work with teachers across the nation to funnel that money back into the public education system, introduce legislation that gets rid of the voucher system whatsoever, and also help support educators and lobbying groups for the education system to get rid of standardized testing because it's not effective. It's not it's actually detrimental to their education. It's detrimental to the children's mental health because children are panicking about standardized tests. And I actually worked as a tutor, and so I was reading some of these standardized testing questions, and I had no idea what they were saying. I was speaking to a teacher with 24 years of experience who is a dissertation away from getting her PhD. She couldn't read the question. She had no idea what they were talking about. Those standardized tests are set up for those children to fail. So, again, I would like to work with representatives across the country to make that happen on a state level, but also on a federal level. That's it.
All right. All right, give us one sec. All right, so we do have another question, real quick. Right. so, so our next question is: how will you appeal to the rural voter? Which is actually a very important thing out this way. How will you appeal to that rural voter?
The way that I would appeal to the rural voter is by just speaking to them as humans. I think we, as like in politics, we tend to try to quantify and put people into different categories. But I think rural voters, they just want to be able to live their life in a way that is most suited to them. They want to be able to do the same things as the rest of us do. Like wake up, go to job, go to work, take care of their kids, and just have a good life. And I think that most people, especially rural voters, want that. They don't want the government in their business. They don't want the government in their schools. And I think we need to respect that and just talk to them as people. Especially Democrats, we tend to have a tendency to be seen as pretentious. We seem to sometimes come across as we're the party that we're so educated, and it does isolate a lot of people. And I think really just approaching people on a people first basis. I don't need to feel like I am better than you, or that because I believe in this over that we are not the same type of person. So identifying what their beliefs are, figuring out where we have common ground, and just speaking to them using people first policy, because that's what my campaign's about.
So this is a question I think about pretty often, actually, because aside from the big blue dots within Texas, most of it is rural people. And a lot of them feel like the government doesn't care about them, that they are in it for themselves, and that nobody is listening to their needs. And so one of the main things that I would like to do as I'm campaigning actually is to make sure that I go to those rural areas and make sure that they know that there are people, including myself, who want to hear what they have to say, who want to make sure that they are getting the quality of life that they want, who are getting the resources that they want or need, especially things like pharmacies, grocery stores, being able to access medical care, being able to access hospitals without having to drive for 2, sometimes 3 hours each way. So I want to make sure that they know that they matter to people, because at the end of the day, that's really what they want. And just like Meagan was saying, I want to make sure that we get down to them on a human level. We don't have to speak at them like we know everything. We just need to meet them at their level and talk to them like they are humans. So that's it. This was already pretty well covered, but the one thing that I do want to add that I have learned more than I ever never knew I needed to know about the water crisis that we're currently facing in Texas. And that is huge for the rural communities and the farming communities. These communities have been fighting for years to try to get some sort of water protection legislation passed in the state house. A half, pardon my language, but a half-assed bill actually did pass this year. But as there is that anything Greg Abbott does, there was actually like a kind of hidden agenda connected to it. We finally got water resources because Elon Musk needs them for his AI super centers. So because they use water to cool those super centers. So while it looks like the governor was like, oh yeah, we're finally tackling water. No. So we need to do so much more. We need to start building desalination plants, which are incredibly expensive. But if we don't start now, we truly will have a crisis here in about 10 years. So we cannot ignore the water crisis here any longer. So that's definitely something that has come up when I've been in the rural areas of my district. So that's one thing to add. Are we stopping? No, I just thought we're in a coffee shop. I'm very gassy.
We're in a hot shop.
Yeah. I personally will only be able to answer one more question because my daughter's in the car waiting to go home. And then we did the handoff. So
we have two. One question for everybody, and the other one's just for Sarah.
Okay,
yes, we'll do that one first. All right. So the question is for all three: what would you do to protect LGBTQIA community?
Great question. What would I do to protect the trans and queer community in Texas? I think the first thing that we would have to do is establish medical privacy laws. That is first and foremost. We need to ensure that we are looking through our current legislation and seeing where we have areas that are discriminatory. So whether that's in housing, whether that's in hiring, we need to be making sure that we are removing that discriminatory language or the allowance of discriminatory language. We like to have really vague concepts in our laws and the way that we write legislation, and we do that intentionally so it can be misinterpreted or interpreted exactly how it was intended, to be fair. So first thing I would do is just make sure that we are pushing legislation for medical privacy laws, making sure that we do not have discriminatory laws currently in place, and if so, making sure that we are rolling those back and putting protections in place. I support gender affirming care for the trans community. I know that that's a hot topic. I don't care. And I say that in the sense that I believe that humans are humans are humans. And we are so lucky to have so many candidates in the governor's race. If that's not for you, I understand, but I will firmly and proudly stand by the trans community. And I will push that they are receiving gender affirming care if that's what they, and if they're under 18, their families are okay with. So that's where I stand on it. Those are my three core things that I would want to do immediately to make sure that we are enshrining queer and trans rights into Texas Constitution and Texas laws. And on that note, I'm going to leave y'all. So thank you so much for coming.
Snap for So a lot of the issue actually goes back to bodily autonomy and the government not feeling like they have the right to bodily autonomy, especially children. There's a misconception actually that in schools, children go in one gender and then they come out the other. I've actually had this discussion with multiple people, and I've had to tell them that in all of the years that I've worked with children in customer service, I have not once ever had a child tell me that they've gone in one gender and come out the other. Some people actually believe that gender reassignment surgery is happening within schools, and they believe that parents have the right to know exactly what's happening in schools. Like, they believe that teachers should not have the right to keep those secrets, which is the secrets being children are dressing and wanting to be addressed by their preferred name, by their preferred pronouns. They believe that children should not have those protections. And I keep telling people that the reason that children do this and the reason that teachers have to do this is because those children are sometimes afraid for their life. If they're not afraid for their life, then they're afraid that they will be kicked out, that they will be punished. Unfortunately, especially by evangelical Christian parents. And a lot of it goes down to education. And I know that not everybody is going to be for it, even if there is comprehensive sex education that's provided to the parents. And it is what it is. But my goal is to make it public knowledge that these things are not happening, that we can support children to a certain degree, and acknowledging who they are as people. And if maybe they're not sure yet, maybe they're just wanting to explore that side of themselves, that they should be able to do so without the threat of their lives, without their threat of their livelihood, without thinking that they're going to be removed from the family. And I want to work with nonprofits across the country. I want to work with other legislators across the country to look at the current legislation that we have in place, the current education systems that we have in place, to make sure that there is no more misconception about what's happening in the country. Thanks.
I have a slightly different take on this. I have decided to attack these questions at a molecular level because the trans community has been so scapegoated and attacked for so long that one of the things that I did when I first started campaigning was I set up a Twitter account. I know it's rough out there, y'all. It's rough out there. But through taking these questions head on from people, I just hit like 12,600 followers like yesterday in like 5 months, because I don't shy away from these questions. So when someone says, "Oh, you just want men to go in women's bathrooms," and I'm like, "Oh my God." So I asked them, I'm like, "Okay, you want that to be a law. How would you enforce that? How would you enforce that law? How are you going to enforce that law?" "Oh, well, you'll just have to show your birth certificate." Okay, so now to live in this country, you want me to carry my birth certificate with me so I can pee at a Target? Like, do you hear yourself? Like, so that is how I'm flipping it back around. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm shutting it down. Like, we're not doing the whole, you just want men. No, that is not what we're saying. Like, you're trying to create laws that are unenforceable. Like, indecent exposure is already illegal. Sexual assault is already illegal. We do not need a law that tells people where they can and can't pee. And I am not going to submit myself to having to carry my birth certificate, having to show my driver's license, having genital inspections, because the number of people that ask me on Twitter every single day whether or not I have a penis is enough. Well, because I refuse to confirm nor deny, because it is zero of their business what I have under my pants. And why are we living in a world where we have normalized asking people what private parts they have? Enough. So we're just taking it, like, they have created this world that is so gross that now I'm taking it from a legislative standpoint. Like, how would you legislate that? I don't care about your personal feelings. As a lawmaker, how would you legislate that? So that's how I'm attacking the conversations. So yeah.
And then we have one final question for someone here at Paula, which is an important question to me too as a business owner.
Hi. Okay, so here's my question. I wrote it down. I'm going to read it as I wrote it. Sorry, guys. Okay. Do you have any say about how many of the same type of businesses in concentration can be in a certain area? For example, 8 coffee shops on Barker Cypress from 529 to 290.
So, like, are you asking whether or not, like,
Yeah.
can you?
like that. You know what I mean? Like old girlfriend kind of. Sorry guys.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, that is I'm actually yes, no, that is an amazing question, and there is one thing, yeah, there is one thing that I will not pretend to do, and that is to be fully knowledgeable on every issue. I have learned something new every single day. And so I will say that is an issue that I am not fully versed on, but having you ask that question, ask me again next week. Yeah. Because I do. I'm constantly learning, like the water thing. I had no idea. I live in a city. They don't talk about water. But, you know, talking to rural communities, I was like, oh, this is bad, y'all. Like, this is bad. So I will learn more about that and follow up with you. Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Excellent.
All right. Everybody's hot now. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. It went a little longer than expected. I do appreciate it. I did have everybody on live. I had a couple people on that. And then we're going to have the other video I'm going to have ready for y'all so you can up this one. Or whatever y'all want. So thank y'all very much. This is the end. Have a great day. Thank y'all.